Hey, Marcus watching MTC Media. Pregame, George Mason, Central Michigan. Going to wrap up with a few keys to this game. Look, this is going to be on Mason tonight and what they want to do with this type of game. And for starters, it's going to start with the three-point shooting. Obviously, against Stony Brook, the three-point shooting was very good. They shot over 40% from three, in part because Zach Anderson, the graduate transfer from Florida Gulf Coast, was 5 for 8 from three. And I would like to see that three incorporated a little bit more, but here's the thing with this team. They're not a three-point shooting team. They have some guys who can make threes. Between Anderson, Maddox, I know KD Johnson made two, but no one's counting on KD Johnson to make three-pointers. So tonight, it's, again, just like they did against Stony Brook. It's not the number of threes you take for George Mason. It's the quality of threes and who's taking those threes. And if it's the Andersons and the Maddoxes taking the threes, George Mason should get to that 8 to 10 mark as a team. If they get there, they should be in good shape. Number two, Braden O'Connor. You guys know how much I love this guy, and you know how much I want to see him get unlocked. When O'Connor plays off the ball, and I spoke with Tony Skinn about this after the win against Stony Brook. When he plays off the ball, he just looks like such a confident player, as opposed to being a primary ball handler. And that's something I know he has to balance all year. George Mason routinely has used 4 primary ball handlers in games, between O'Connor, Johnson, Justin Begg, and Jeremiah Quigley. So, but when O'Connor's off the ball and how he attacks the rim, I think 50% of his shots coming at the rim, finishing at a 66.7%. No, 50% is assisted, and finishing at a 66.7 rate at the front of the rim. And that tells you he's getting downhill. He's getting downhill hard. For him to be helped in that is when George Mason moves the ball well and he gets it in attacks on ball reversal. And when he does that, now his speed and his athleticism take over, and then Braden O'Connor becomes this guy who can hit shots. He does have the little pull-up, even though his two-point jumper percentage is not all that great. But when he gets to the front of the rim, it just opens things up for this team, and now you can't load up on one side, especially in that ball reversal. So it's also a specter of being unselfish too, as far as George Mason and moving the ball. And last but not least, free throws. One of the things that George Mason did, and this is always a good thing to happen. Not only did George Mason shoot over 40% from three on over 23 three-point attempts, they also won the free throw attempt category. When you can make more threes at a higher percentage than your opponent, and then attempt and make more free throws than your opponent, in 2024, you're making the math. Doesn't mean you always win, because I'm sure you can bring up games where a team has done that and still lost. But I tell you, when teams like George Mason and a lot of teams in this country, when they can make the math, especially when they have more talent than their opponent, I mean, that's when you get the 94-56 game that you saw against Stony Brook. And that's something that they need to do tonight and continue to do that. Shoot the three better, which is going to be the quality of the three, but also be able to throw the ball inside the Imajuru and Haynes. Be able to attack the front of the rim. Be able to be aggressive, draw to, finish and one. All of those things help get that free throw attempt up. And now making more and attempting more free throws than your opponent, making more threes in George Mason's case, not necessarily attempting more threes than your opponent, but making more threes than your opponent. And then that's a recipe for success on that end, because Georgetown against Stony Brook, and I know that Tony Skinn loved this, even though he felt like there was a few breakdowns here. Defensively, they were very good. And that they continue that defensive effort, they will be in games. And then those three keys I just talked about, now you add those in there, and now you have an Atlantic 10 team who has a rightful expectation to finish, you know, fifth or above in the conference. So those are the things to watch for tonight. Watch for those things more than the score. If the score gets out of control, keep watching for those things, because what George Mason wants to do, even in the games that aren't particularly close, what they want to do is build habits and build good habits, build repeatable good habits. So watch for that tonight. That is our preview for George Mason, Central Michigan. This is Mark Washington, MTC Media.